Chapter 1. To pave the way for her unforgettable first love, my girlfriend unilaterally changed my bid contract. When I confronted her, she was nonchalant. "It's just a piece of land, isn't it? Does it matter what gets built? Besides, he's using the land to build a school. That's far more meaningful than your waste treatment plant. Can't you learn from him and contribute more to society?" What she didn't know was that the plot was industrial land. It couldn't be used for a school at all. Now all they could do was wait to be hit with hundreds of millions in penalties. Chapter 1. I took a deep breath. Do you have any idea how much of our blood, sweat, and tears went into this project? Once it's exposed that you altered the project, you won't be the only one implicated. Victoria Hayes slammed her hand on the table impatiently. All I know is that this project will bring greater benefits to the company. Say no more. This is final. I almost laughed out of sheer anger. To secure a top-tier corporate rating, the company had specifically chosen the most advantageous plan based on local subsidy policies. But ever since Ethan Miller arrived, he insisted that building a school was a better plan. Victoria, as if she'd lost her mind, believed every word he said. She only backed down after Ethan and I each submitted a project proposal, and mine won. I never imagined that now, with the contract already signed, she would secretly change the contents. I felt my heart grow cold. Just don't regret this. Seeing my expression, Victoria seemed to feel a pang of guilt. She opened her mouth, about to say something more, but her phone suddenly rang. Victoria quickly answered it. I glanced at the screen, which brightly displayed my dearest. From the other end of the line, Ethan's anxious voice came through. "Vicky, you have to get to the construction site. These people are completely unruly and are even threatening to get physical with me." Victoria panicked, exclaiming, "Don't worry. I'm on my way right now. You tell them if they dare to hurt you, I'll make every last one of them pay with their lives." I watched her, my expression icy. In the 7 years we'd been together, she had never publicly acknowledged my status as her boyfriend, let alone called me dearest. But now, she had not only given Ethan a special contact name, but, despite being known for her rationality and composure, had become flustered and helpless over a single sentence from him. Perhaps I should have realized it long ago. In Victoria's heart, Ethan was the one who truly mattered. Victoria had no time for me anymore. She grabbed her bag and rushed to leave. I stopped her. "I'll go with you." Victoria, thinking I was worried about her safety, softened her expression slightly. "Don't be angry. If it weren't for Ethan, I might have drowned all those years ago. Everything I'm doing now is to repay the debt for him saving my life." Whenever Victoria chose Ethan over me, she would use the fact that he had once saved her life as an excuse to shut down my complaints. I'd heard it so many times I was immune. I nodded non-committally, my real concern being potential problems with the project. After all, I had managed this project from the very beginning. I couldn't bear to see it fall apart. When Victoria and I arrived at the construction site, we immediately saw a group of construction workers tightly circled up. Every face was filled with fury. From the center of the circle, we could faintly hear Ethan's angry shouting. Victoria bellowed, "What do you think you're doing?" "All of you, back off." The crew turned, and the circle opened up. Spotting Victoria through the gap, Ethan's face instantly twisted into a look of grievance. He pushed through the crowd and threw himself into Victoria's arms. "Vicky, these people are a mob. I just told them the project had changed and that they should pack up and leave." They suddenly surrounded me, demanding compensation, and threatened to beat me to death. Victoria's heart ached for him. She stroked his back comfortingly and glared at the crew. "You haven't even officially started work. On what grounds are you demanding compensation?" I suddenly realized something was wrong and quickly asked, "The company just signed the contract with the construction team yesterday. You replaced them all today?" Victoria shot me an impatient look. "Is building a school the same as building a waste plant? If we don't replace them, who's going to take responsibility if something goes wrong later? Sincere Clark, you'd better figure out whose side you're on." I felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over my already frozen heart. From winning the bid to signing the contract with the construction team, the entire process had taken months. And Victoria, in just 2 or 3 days, had not only secretly altered the contract but had also replaced the entire crew. I wouldn't believe for a second that this wasn't premeditated. Just then, a middle-aged man in a blue hard hat stepped out from the crew. He glanced at me, then smiled at Victoria. "Boss Hayes, hello. I'm the foreman here, Franklin Quinn. Although we haven't officially started, we did sign a contract. Once a contract is signed, you have to follow the rules. Otherwise, if everyone acted like you, how could anyone do business?" The other workers nodded in agreement. "Exactly, we turned down other jobs for this project. Now you just replace us on a whim. Who's going to compensate us for our losses?" Victoria's composure was clearly slipping. Ethan sneered. "We can find workers like you a dime a dozen. What gives you the right to bargain with us? I'd rather throw this money to beggars than give it to you vermin," he then spat on the ground. The faces of the crew members darkened instantly, and even Franklin's expression turned grim. Seeing Ethan stand up for her, Victoria's confidence returned. "I don't care what the contract says. All I know is I haven't seen you do any work. Either you leave on your own now, or I'll have security throw you out. If anyone gets hurt in the process, I won't be responsible. The choice is yours." This kind of behavior was practically suicidal for the company's future. I couldn't watch any longer. I stepped forward to reason with her. "It's a small industry. If you do this, who will ever dare to take on our company's projects again?" Before Victoria could react, Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Sincere, you're siding with Franklin so much. Is there something fishy going on here? I've heard people in the company say you've been taking a lot of kickbacks behind everyone's back. I didn't believe it at first, but now, it's hard to say." Victoria's gaze immediately turned suspicious. My heart sank. I asked her, "Is that what you think too?" Victoria didn't speak, but her expression made it clear she believed at least some of it. I suddenly felt that everything I was doing was a complete joke. For years, I had worked my fingers to the bone to build this company, enduring hardships and insults without ever complaining to Victoria. Now, because of a single simple sentence from Ethan, she was starting to doubt me. I decided to say nothing more. Seeing my silence, Ethan took it as an admission of guilt. He was immensely pleased and turned to Victoria to take credit. "I have a relative who's in construction. His quote is definitely more competitive than this one. And with me overseeing it, I'll make sure no one gets a chance to take kickbacks." Victoria nodded in satisfaction, about to praise him. But as she looked up, she saw a worker sneaking up behind Ethan, brandishing a club. Her face went pale. "Look out," she screamed. At the same time, she flailed her arms, instinctively shoving me forward. Caught off guard, I stumbled a few steps before regaining my balance. The next second, the club came crashing down on me. Chapter 2. I instinctively raised my arm to block the blow. Instantly, a sharp, bone-deep pain shot from my forearm up my entire arm. My whole body felt numb, and a cold sweat broke out across my back. Realizing he had hit the wrong person, the worker dropped the club in terror. It clattered to the ground. He stammered, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to teach him a lesson." But Victoria hadn't noticed what happened to me at all. Her eyes were fixed on Ethan. After carefully checking him for any injuries, she breathed a sigh of relief. Then, she rushed forward and slapped the worker across the face. "If you had hurt him, could you have afforded to pay? I'm telling you, this isn't over. None of you are leaving today." Seeing Victoria defend him so fiercely, Ethan was first stunned, then overjoyed. He shot me a triumphant, provocative look. I watched them both in silence. This was the first time I had ever seen Victoria hit someone. She had always been so careful about her public image, viewing physical violence as something only a shrew would resort to. But now, for Ethan, she had thrown her image to the wind. The last shred of hope in my heart vanished completely. Seeing that someone was injured, Franklin hurried over to pull Victoria and the worker apart. After a moment's thought, he said, "Forget it. We don't want compensation. Just let us go, and we'll drop the matter of the contract. As for the medical expenses," he looked at me apologetically, "I'll cover all of it." I didn't blame him. No one could have predicted things would turn out this way. Unexpectedly, while Franklin and I were ready to let it go, Ethan was not. He clutched his chest, a pained expression on his face. "Sorry, but it's not up to you to decide when you can leave. My heart is feeling extremely uncomfortable. I have reason to believe you scared me." At his words, Victoria rushed to his side, her face etched with concern. "Are you okay? Where does it hurt? I'll take you to the hospital right now." Ethan stopped her, pointing at Franklin. "They have to be held responsible." Franklin's brow furrowed. "What do you want?" Ethan slowly held up 2 fingers, a look of absolute certainty on his face. Franklin's brow relaxed slightly. He took out his phone to make a transfer. 8,000, right? Fine. Are you trying to get rid of a beggar? Ethan's composure shattered, and he began to curse. It's $800,000. You transfer me $800,000, and we'll call it even. Otherwise, I'll have all of you thrown in jail. The worker who had swung the club stared in disbelief at the amount. Why don't you just rob us? Ethan sneered. Fine, you don't agree? Then I'll just call the cops and let them handle it. He took out his phone, pretending to make a call. The worker, enraged, tried to charge at him again but was held back by Franklin. Franklin ignored Ethan and looked directly at Victoria. Victoria, is this what you want too? Victoria frowned, hesitating for a moment. Finally, she nodded. Ethan has a heart condition. This could be serious. You can't put a price on a life. Even $8 million wouldn't be too much. Hearing this, I suddenly laughed out loud. I'm the one who's actually hurt. Shouldn't you ask for the victim's opinion first? Why is all the attention on Ethan? Victoria looked as if she had just remembered I existed. She whipped her head around to look at me. Only then did she notice my injury. Her face flushed with embarrassment. She took a couple of steps forward, as if to check on my injury. Ethan suddenly interjected with a fake theatrical tone. Oh my, sincere, are you okay? I didn't see the club hit you. Why are you holding your arm like that? Are you hurt somewhere? The smile vanished from my face. I stared coldly at Ethan. I knew exactly what he was implying. There was a time when Victoria went to watch the stars with Ethan late at night. Out of jealousy, I deliberately took a cold shower to give myself a fever just to lure her back. But I didn't have time to clean up the bathroom before Victoria discovered what I had done. Under her persistent questioning, I confessed the truth. Afterward, Victoria was furious with me and ignored me for over a month. It took countless apologies and a great deal of effort to win her back. But ever since that incident, Victoria had stopped trusting me. Ethan's words now were just a reminder to Victoria that this was likely another one of my self-pity tricks. Victoria seemed to recall that incident as well, and her face instantly turned cold. If you're not hurt, then stay out of it. At a time like this, you're still getting jealous like a child. You have no sense of the bigger picture. I ignored her and looked at Ethan with a cold smile. Since you keep insisting your heart is bothering you, let's both go to the hospital for a full checkup. Not just to have evidence, but for your own health. What do you say? Chapter 3. As I spoke, I deliberately emphasized the words full checkup. Victoria thought it over and agreed it was a reasonable idea. She prepared to take Ethan to the hospital. Ethan immediately panicked. No, that's okay. I don't think I feel that bad anymore. I was just joking. Why did everyone take it so seriously? Since no one's really hurt, let's just drop it. Anyone who wants to leave can go now. Victoria hesitated. Are you sure you're okay? Ethan immediately patted his chest in assurance. Of course I can even jump around for you if you want with that. He hopped on the spot a few times. When Victoria wasn't looking, he turned his head and shot me a vicious glare. I pretended not to see it and smiled at Franklin. See? You guys can go. This time Victoria didn't stop them. Franklin opened his mouth as if to say something to me, but in the end he just nodded and left with his crew. Victoria, still worried about Ethan, instructed me. I'm taking Ethan to the hospital for a checkup. You can get a cab back yourself. With that, she helped Ethan toward her car. She was so careful, as if Ethan were the most precious porcelain doll in her hands. Ethan glanced back at me, his eyes full of triumph. I just found the whole thing pathetic. I tried to move my arm and a sharp pain shot through the flesh, straight to my nerves, but I still breathed a sigh of relief. At least the bone wasn't broken. Just in case, I decided to go to the hospital to get it checked out. Unexpectedly, after walking just a few steps, I saw Franklin walking back toward me from a distance. I stopped and smiled at the returning Franklin. Aren't you afraid Ethan is still around and will try to scam you again? He held up his phone. If he dares to scam me, I'll dare to sue him for extortion and blackmail. Only then did I notice that Franklin had had his phone's recording function on the whole time. I chuckled and pretended to punch his shoulder. You're a clever one, but the movement pulled at my injury, and I winced in pain. Franklin quickly supported me. Take it easy. The guy who swung at you is known for having a strong arm. Come on, I'll take you to the hospital. I didn't refuse his kindness and got into his car. What Victoria never knew was that Franklin and I had known each other for a long time. Franklin had been part of the very first project I ever managed. Over the years, I had come to admire his integrity, and he respected my abilities. Though we didn't keep in close contact, we were kindred spirits. My insistence on going to the construction site with Victoria today was partly to make sure Franklin didn't get taken advantage of. I just never expected I would be the one to get hurt. After an examination, the doctor confirmed that there were no fractures in my arm. Franklin finally let out a sigh of relief. "As long as you're okay, I can rest easy." Seeing his reaction, I couldn't help but feel a pang of irony. One was Franklin, a man I'd connected with through work and shared interests. The other was Victoria, my girlfriend of many years, bound to me by love and companionship. The contrast in their attitudes when I was injured was stark. Franklin, holding a bag of medicine in one hand and his keys in the other, asked, "Where to next, brother? I'll give you a ride." His question left me stunned. Ever since Ethan joined the company a few months ago, my place there had been gradually disappearing. Victoria's blatant favoritism had caused even my own subordinates to shift their loyalties. And my home, it was filled with too many memories of Victoria and me. After the events of the past few days, my eyes were wide open. I had no desire to return to a place haunted by those sickeningly false memories. I frowned, trying to think of where else I could go. Unexpectedly, as we rounded a corner, we ran right into Victoria and Ethan, who were at the hospital for a checkup. Victoria was holding a stack of reports, apparently just finished with the examination. The moment she saw me, she froze, a look of confusion on her face. "What are you doing here? You were actually hurt?" Before I could speak, Ethan's eyes widened, and he pointed at Franklin. "Isn't that Franklin, the guy who was leading the trouble at the construction site? What are you doing here with Sincere?" Only then did Victoria notice Franklin standing next to me. Her face immediately darkened. Ethan, loving the drama, fanned the flames. "No way, Sincere, you're not only playing the victim now, but you're also colluding with outsiders to stir up trouble. No matter what, you poured your heart into this company. If you were unhappy, you could have just said so. Why resort to this?" As he spoke, Victoria's expression grew even more grim. She looked at me, her tone hostile. "Sincere, don't you think you owe me an explanation?" Franklin opened his mouth to defend me, but I stopped him. I looked back and forth between Ethan and Victoria and finally couldn't help but laugh. "That's right. It's exactly as it looks. Franklin and I have known each other for a long time. Today's incident was a setup that I orchestrated with him. Victoria was furious. Sincere, and I trusted you. How could you conspire with an outsider to cause trouble on my construction site?" Even Ethan was surprised that I had admitted it so directly. A glint of delight flashed in his eyes. "I knew it, Victoria. Don't let him fool you again. If he's capable of being a disloyal traitor like this, what else won't he do? Keeping someone like him around is just asking for trouble." Victoria bit her lip, her eyes filled with conflict. She took a deep breath and finally said slowly, "If it weren't for Ethan, I don't know how today's situation would have been resolved. Sincere, you will apologize to Ethan right now and voluntarily give him your position. If you do, I'll pretend none of this ever happened. Otherwise, you don't need to come back to the company." Even now, she was still scheming for Ethan's benefit. I shrugged nonchalantly. "No need, I'll resign myself." Victoria froze. A flash of joy crossed Ethan's face before he quickly masked it. "See, Vicky? He's been planning this all along. He probably already has another job lined up." Even Franklin, standing beside me, looked surprised. He thought for a moment, then turned to me to confirm. "Sincere, are you sure you want to resign?" I nodded, my resolve firm. It wasn't that I lacked other opportunities. I had stayed only for Victoria. Now that she had changed and the project I had poured my soul into was ruined, there was nothing left for me here. Seeing my determination, Franklin let out a slow breath. "I was worried that you working here might get you implicated. Since you're resigning, I have nothing to worry about anymore." I looked at him, confused. Then I saw Franklin straighten his clothes and pull a badge from his pocket. He held the badge up to Victoria, his expression serious. "Let me reintroduce myself. I am Franklin Quinn, Project Supervisor for the Engineering Bureau. And right now, I have strong reason to suspect your company of altering project specifications for the purpose of illegal, profiteering through deceptive means. Please come with me." Chapter 4. Victoria and I both stood there, stunned. Only Ethan, after a moment of shock, pointed at Franklin and burst into laughter. "You? If a lowly construction worker like you is from the Engineering Bureau, then I'm the director's father." Franklin's eyes turned cold, a humorless smile on his face. "Is that so? I hope you'll still be laughing later." Ethan frowned. "What's that supposed to mean? Are you threatening me?" Franklin didn't bother with him anymore, turning to Victoria. "Miss Hayes, if you please." Victoria's expression shifted rapidly before she forced a smile. You just suspect us of changing the project, right? As it happens, I have the contract with me. Here, take a look. She pulled a document from her bag. This contract has always specified a school from the very beginning. We simply hired the wrong construction team initially and are now setting things right. Is there a problem? Her expression and tone were a picture of innocence, as if everything was exactly as she claimed. If I didn't know the truth, I might have been fooled. However, to my surprise, Franklin took the contract, glanced through it quickly, and said nothing. It wasn't until Victoria couldn't help but ask, "Are you done? Is there a problem?" She couldn't hide the flicker of nervousness in her eyes or the slight tremble in her voice. Franklin's eyes glinted. He handed the contract back to her and smiled. "No problem at all. It seems I was mistaken. My apologies." Hearing this, Victoria visibly relaxed and put the contract back in her bag. Then she feigned a casual tone. "It's good that we've cleared this up. It would be a messy situation if an innocent person were wrongly accused. But Ethan, seeing Franklin get shut down, wouldn't let it go. You think a simple apology is enough? You publicly slandered Victoria. What if this gets out? What about her reputation and the company's?" Franklin raised an eyebrow. "Then what do you suggest?" "Of course, we should—" Before he could finish, Victoria snapped, "Shut up." Her sharp voice made passers-by stare, and even Ethan looked at her in surprise. Realizing her overreaction, Victoria cleared her throat and said softly to Ethan, "It's not a big deal. Let's just drop it. After all, the contract wouldn't stand up to scrutiny." Victoria didn't dare press the issue. With every word she spoke, she couldn't help but glance at me, afraid I would expose her to Franklin. But she didn't know that I wanted nothing more to do with their mess. Ethan snorted. "Since Vicky is being generous, I'll let you off the hook this time. Watch yourself next time." Franklin shot him a contemptuous look, not bothering to reply. He clapped me on the shoulder. "Brother, have you found your next job? If not, I can recommend some. I know a lot of people in this field." I smiled. "Thanks, but that won't be necessary." The CEO of Apex Consolidated contacted me yesterday with an offer. It was thanks to this project, ironically. Apex Consolidated had also been interested in the land, but had lost to us in the bidding. When the CEO heard about my situation, he didn't hesitate to extend an olive branch. I hadn't planned on leaving, but now it seemed like a good new beginning. At the mention of that name, both Victoria and Ethan's faces changed. Who in the industry didn't know the reputation of Apex Consolidated? Even starting at an entry-level position, there was a golden addition to anyone's resume. Sincere Victoria suddenly called out, her voice urgent. "When did I say you could resign?" Seeing me frown, she softened her tone. "If you don't want to apologize, then don't. As long as you behave from now on, I'll pretend today never happened. You can still be a loyal and dedicated employee of the company." I knew Victoria all too well. In work and in life, whenever I did something she didn't like, she would immediately condemn me. When had she ever let me off the hook? She was only saying this now because I had leverage over her, and she didn't want me to leave her control. Yet she was too proud to admit defeat, so she offered this pathetic olive branch. Ethan added his own hypocritical 2 cents. "Sincere, even after you betrayed the company, Vicky is still willing to forgive you. She's being more than fair. You should be thanking her." I was tired of their performance. "Sorry, but no matter what you say, I've decided to leave. And Victoria, let's break up." This was the first time Victoria had been publicly humiliated, especially by me. She was flushed with anger and embarrassment. But thinking of the secret I held, she forced her anger down. Her voice was wounded. "Sincere, what are you saying? Why are you suddenly breaking up with me? You promised you would never leave the company, that you would never leave me. You said you would fight for this company, for me, until your last breath. And now, just because Apex Consolidated made you an offer, you're going to break your promise?" My gaze turned cold. "Victoria, you should ask yourself who broke their promise first. My promises back then were real, but so was my heartbreak now. If Victoria hadn't repeatedly hurt me for Ethan's sake, would we have ever ended up like this?" Victoria froze, then a look of realization dawned. Her face was full of disbelief. "But Ethan is different. He's my savior. How can you abandon me just because I favor him?" I shook my head and turned to leave. That's how people are. They don't feel the pain until it happens to them, and even when it does, they'll still think it's the other person's fault. Franklin, having enjoyed the show enough, followed me and slung an arm around my shoulder. "Don't be sad, brother. Come on, I'll introduce you to some new friends today." I nodded. Behind me, Victoria's indignant voice cried out, "Fine, Sincere Clark. You can go, just go if you've got the guts, then never come back." She didn't know that I truly never would. Chapter 5. Franklin took me to meet some of his colleagues. There were quite a few familiar faces among them. I joked, "You guys are good at hiding in plain sight, and here I thought you were all from the construction company." Franklin scratched the back of his head, looking a bit embarrassed. "Brother, it's not that I intentionally hid it from you. It's just that this identity is too conspicuous. We had to stay undercover. Otherwise, if something went wrong on a project and we didn't catch it in time, we'd be in serious trouble." I nodded in understanding. Surface-level problems were easy to solve, but the shady dealings that happened in the dark were much harder to detect. After a few drinks with them, I got up to go to the restroom. As I opened the door to our private room, I saw Ethan leading a group of people into the room next door. Thanks to the crowd, Ethan didn't see me. Franklin followed my gaze and let out a short, meaningful laugh. "You really jumped out of the fire pit just in time." In a flash, I thought of the contract Victoria had shown him. I asked him, "You couldn't possibly have missed that there was something wrong with that contract, could you?" Franklin didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked, "Sincere, besides supervision, do you know what we're best at?" I was puzzled. "What?" He smiled. "You have to let out a long line to catch a big fish." For the next month, neither Victoria nor Ethan bothered me. I successfully started my new job at Apex Consolidated, and my life gradually got back on track. One evening, after dinner with a client, I came home to find Victoria in my apartment. The moment she saw me, she frowned and demanded, "Where have you been? Why are you back so late?" I glanced at the keys on the table and remembered that I had forgotten to change the locks. Thinking about my schedule for the next day, I pulled out my phone and added a new reminder, "Remember to change the locks." Then, I headed to my room to rest. Victoria suddenly came up from behind and wrapped her arms around me. Her tone softened. "Sincere, I know you're angry, which is why I've been giving you space to cool down. It's been weeks. You're not still holding a grudge over those little things, are you?" I pushed her away and shook my head. "Victoria, we've already broken up." In the past, the slightest sign of remorse from Victoria would have made me forget all our problems. This was the first time I had ever pushed her away. A flash of anger crossed Victoria's face, but then she seemed to think of something and smiled. "I know you're just being proud and saying things you don't mean. If you really wanted to break up with me, why haven't you changed the locks? Come on, I owe Ethan my life, so I naturally prioritize him sometimes. I realize now that was a mistake. After this project is over, I'll keep my distance from him, and we can get married, okay?" You see, it wasn't that she didn't know I was hurt or angry. It wasn't that she didn't know she was too close to Ethan. She was just so used to my tolerance that she pretended not to know. But unfortunately for her, it was too late. I looked at Victoria and said word by word, "I am not going to marry you, and I am not going back to the company. I didn't change the locks because I've been too busy, but tomorrow, no matter what, I will have them changed. And you need to pack up everything that belongs to you in this apartment and take it with you before then. Otherwise, I'll pack it up as trash and have it hauled away." Victoria's face stiffened. She was about to speak, but then she leaned closer to me and took a deep sniff. As if she had finally found something to use against me, she narrowed her eyes and demanded, "Where did that perfume on you come from?" In the past, Victoria had said she hated men who wore cologne, so I never used it. Even after a work dinner, I would immediately wash my clothes upon returning home. Later, Ethan would be drenched in a strong, cheap cologne, yet she never seemed to mind, even praising it as his unique masculine scent. And now that we had nothing to do with each other, she had the nerve to question me. I found it absurd. "Victoria, are you incapable of understanding plain English? I've broken up with you. Please stay away from me. This clingy, desperate act of yours is just making me sick." My words were like daggers, trampling her pride into the dust. Victoria could no longer hold back her anger. "Sincere, let me tell you something. We've already received the first government subsidy. The project Ethan is in charge of has been contracted and has officially begun. Once this project is completed, the company will be named an outstanding enterprise, and contracts will come pouring in by then. Apex Consolidated won't even be worthy of shining our shoes. You should think carefully about what kind of attitude you should have toward me right now." I was unmoved. "Is that so? Well, I'll be waiting with bated breath." Seeing that I was impervious to her threats, Victoria sneered. Fine, Sincere, I gave you a chance to come back, but you didn't take it. Done. You dare regret this. With that, she grabbed her bag and stormed out. A short while later, Victoria updated her social media feed. There's always someone who will be by your side when you need them most. The post was accompanied by a picture of her and Ethan drinking at a bar. As for me, I just found it all boring. I blocked and deleted her in one swift move, then went to bed for a peaceful night's sleep. However, early the next morning, my phone rang with a piercing alarm. The moment I answered, a panicked voice from a former colleague came through. Sincere, bad news, the company's been shut down. Chapter 6. The turn of events was exactly as I had anticipated. The land the company had acquired was zoned for industrial use. Without rezoning it, Victoria and Ethan were taking government subsidies while constructing an illegal building. Franklin had sensed something was wrong from the very beginning. He had infiltrated the construction crew to investigate and gather evidence. His confrontation at the hospital was a deliberate ploy to get a look at the contract in Victoria's hands. He never expected that she would not only carry it with her but would also hand him the very evidence he needed. As for the construction team Ethan brought in, they lacked the proper qualifications and used substandard materials. Even if the building were completed, it would be a shoddy corner-cutting project, completely unusable. When Victoria was taken away, she was still in a state of disbelief, hysterically claiming that she had a contract and that all her actions were legal and compliant. However, when the forensics team presented her with proof of the forged contract, she was left speechless. Victoria was now facing not only decades in prison, but also hundreds of millions of dollars in fines. I explained to my former colleague that I was no longer associated with the company. Then I hung up. That day, the news feeds were flooded with stories about Victoria forging contracts and fraudulently obtaining subsidies. There was even a disheveled, desperate-looking photo of her being led away. As for Ethan, he had gotten word in advance and had fled overnight. He was now listed as a fugitive. Because I was the initial project manager, the police called me to give a statement. I took the day off from work. When I arrived, I found that Franklin had already spoken with his colleagues. They knew I was not involved, so they asked a few simple questions and let me go. I thought my connection with Victoria was finally over and that our paths would never cross again. But one day, several months later, Victoria's lawyer found me, saying that she wanted to see me. I refused without hesitation, as if he had anticipated my response. The lawyer pulled a coin from his pocket. It had a yellow smiley face sticker on it. The lawyer said, "Miss Hayes said that if I gave you this coin, you would come to see her." I looked at the coin and sighed slowly. It was a wish coin I had made for Victoria when we first started dating. I had upset her, and this was my way of making it up to her. I had promised that any time, anywhere, if she presented this coin, I would grant her one wish. After all these years, Victoria had never used it. I thought she had thrown it away long ago. I never expected her to use it now. I thought for a moment and took the coin. Then, I peeled off the sticker and tossed the coin into a nearby trash can without a second thought. Fine, I'll go. Chapter 7. The weather was beautiful on the day I went to see Victoria, but she was a wreck, her face gaunt and her black hair streaked with gray, messily pulled back. The moment she saw me, a glimmer of hope ignited in her eyes. I thought she had finally realized the error of her ways. But I never expected that the first words out of her mouth would be, "Sincere, you wrote the proposal, and you won the bid for the project. You can't abandon me, please. Take the fall for me if you do. I promise I'll be better to you when you get out. No, twice as good, 3 times, 10 times better. You always wanted to get married, to have a family, right? If you take the fall for me, I'll marry you right now." Her expression was wild, like a madwoman, but every word was still about herself, with no consideration for what I might want. How could I have been so foolish? To think that a person like this could ever see their own mistakes? I shook my head. "Victoria, you made this mistake. You reaped what you sowed. You have to bear the consequences yourself. No one can help you." Seeing my resolve, Victoria dropped the act. Her eyes blazed with fury as she screamed, "And you used to say you would do anything for me. Now I'm just asking you for this one small favor, to take the fall for me, and you refuse. How can someone like you even compare to Ethan? At least he saved my life. He almost gave his own life for me." You see, even at a time like this, she still believed Ethan was the better man. I watched her, my heart completely calm. "Victoria, didn't you know? Ethan was caught. He's pushed all the blame onto you." I counted off on my fingers. Forging the contract, subsidy fraud, illegal construction, the shoddy engineering. He said it was all your idea, that he knew nothing about it. Victoria didn't believe me. She laughed. "You're trying to trick me." Ethan would never do that to me. He saved me." Before she could finish, I cut her off. July 20th, 3 in the afternoon, the bridge by the old ferry. "Well, what?" Victoria stared at me blankly. I looked at her, a hint of pity in my eyes. 8 years ago. The time and place you nearly drowned. The person who saved you wasn't Ethan. He just happened to find out about it and used it to get close to you. You were so naive you didn't know anything. You believed everything he said based on just a few words. Victoria, you were deceived. It seemed this revelation was even more unbearable to her than going to prison. After a moment of stunned silence, Victoria let out a hysterical scream. "You're lying! You're lying! How could the person who saved me not be Ethan? If it wasn't him, then who was it? Tell me," but I didn't say another word. I simply stood up. Seeing that I was about to leave, a look of utter desperation crossed her face. "Sincere, don't go, please don't go. Help me, save me. If you get me out of here, I'll do anything you want." I looked at her and slowly shook my head. "Victoria, you will never know who really saved you. For the rest of your life, you can stay in here and atone for your mistakes." With that, I turned my back on her heart-wrenching screams and walked away without a second thought. Everyone has to take responsibility for their own choices, and none of it had anything to do with me anymore. The end.